Good evening. Today is Tuesday, February 18th, 2025. Before starting this video, I would like to acknowledge the unceded territory of the Massachusetts, Pawtucket, Pocumtuck, and other native tribes that were indigenous to the location that I am in right now. I'm continuing. This is part 6 of A People's History of the United States. My point is not that we must, in telling history, accuse, judge, condemn Columbus in absentia. It's too late for that. It would be a useless scholarly exercise in morality. But the easy acceptance of atrocities as a deplorable but necessary price to pay for progress, parentheses, Hiroshima and Vietnam to save Western civilization, Kronstadt and Hungary to save socialism, nuclear proliferation to save us all, in parentheses, that is still with us. One reason these atrocities are still with us is that we have learned to bury them in a mass of other facts. As radioactive wastes are buried in containers in the earth, we've learned to give them exactly the same proportion of attention that teachers and writers often give them in the most respectable of classrooms and textbooks. This learned sense of moral proportion of attention that teachers and writers often give them in the most respectable, This learned sense of moral proportion coming from the apparent objectivity of the scholar is accepted more easily than when it comes from politicians at press conferences. It is therefore more deadly. The treatment of heroes, parentheses, Columbus, in parentheses, and their victims, parentheses, the Arawaks, parentheses, the quiet acceptance of conquest and murder in the name of progress is only one aspect of a certain approach to history, in which the past is told from the point of view of governments, conquerors, diplomats, leaders. It is as if they, like Columbus, deserve universal acceptance, as if they, the founding fathers, Jackson, Lincoln, Wilson, Roosevelt, Kennedy, the leading members of Congress, the famous justices of the Supreme Court, represent the nation as a whole. The pretense is that there really is such a thing as, quote, the United States, unquote, subject to occasional conflicts and quarrels, but fundamentally a community of people with common interests. It is as if there really is a, quote, national interest, unquote, represented in the Constitution, in territorial expansion, in the laws passed by Congress, the decisions of the courts, the development of capitalism, the culture of education, and the mass media. Quote, history is the memory of states, end quote, wrote Henry Kissinger in his first book, A World Restored, in which he proceeded to tell the history of 19th century Europe from the viewpoint of the leaders of Austria and England, ignoring the millions who suffered from those statesmen's policies. From his standpoint, the, quote, peace that Europe had before the French Revolution was, quote, restored by the diplomacy of a few national leaders. But for factory workers in England, farmers in France, colored people in Asia and Africa, women and children everywhere, except in the upper classes, it was a world of conquest, violence, hunger, exploitation. A world not restored, but disintegrated. My viewpoint in telling the history of the United States is different, that we must not accept the memory of states as our own. Nations are not communities and have never been. The history of any country, presented as the history of a family, conceals fierce conflicts of interest, sometimes exploding, most often repressed, between conquerors and conquered, masters and slaves, capitalists and workers, dominators and dominated in race and sex. And in such a world of conflict, a world of victims and executioners, it is the job of thinking people, as Albert Camus suggested, not to be on the side of the executioners. Okay, I will stop here for today. This is part 6. I will continue with part 7 as my next video. Thank you. Have a good day.